fun එක next level කරන dialogue fan blaster.
Tonight, on First at 9 this Wednesday the 18th of December 2024. Economic measures. President delivers special statement to Parliament. Announces economic measures including increase to pay tax threshold, a hike in withholding tax and plans to improve Sri Lanka's foreign reserves to $15 billion. Imports resume. Vehicle imports to Sri Lanka to resume from February next year. Public finance. Dr. Harsha De Silva appointed as chairman of Committee on Public Finance. Chinese connections. China expresses plans to resume maritime research in the Indian Ocean as temporary ban imposed by Sri Lanka comes to an end. Chinese top official meets Sri Lankan president just 2 days after India expressed confidence that due care will be given to security concerns over visits of Chinese vessels.
Chilo Dairy, Sri Lankawama Kiren Perata. ඔබේ විශ්වාසය දෙනු සෙන්සුරයින් දැන් ළඟමැති ෆාමසියෙන් ලබාගත හැක.
කට්ට පරිස්සම් කරගත්තොත් අපි පරිස්සම්.
Asian Paints Causeway Aquasave වැස්සත් මට්ටුවෙන් ගෙදරත් තිස්නේ.
This is Derana First at 9. Live from Studio 24 in Colombo.
Good evening and welcome to Sri Lanka's premier primetime English news bulletin, Derana First at 9. I'm Tarindu Mahendra, joining you live with the latest in Sri Lanka and from around the world. In your top story this evening, President Anura Dissanayake participated in parliamentary proceedings this morning and delivered a special statement regarding Sri Lanka's IMF agreement and new economic measures that will be implemented by government. Addressing the House, the head of state said government will increase the pay tax threshold to 150,000 rupees from 100,000 rupees at present, while withholding tax will be increased to 10% from 5% at present. Speaking further, the president revealed that the import of vehicles for personal use will be allowed from February next year. Sri Lanka now plans to increase foreign reserves up to $15.1 billion by year 2028.
President Anura Dissanayake, who returned to the island last night following his first state visit to India, participated in today's parliamentary proceedings. He delivered a special statement to the House regarding new agreements reached with the International Monetary Fund during the third review under Sri Lanka's Extended Fund Facility Program.
By 2028, we intend to increase foreign reserves up to $15.1 billion. We recently restructured $12.55 billion of defaulted international sovereign bonds along with $1.7 billion in unpaid interest. Of the $12.55 billion principal, $11.55 billion was borrowed by the government that was in power from 2015 to 2019. Therefore, it is now too late for members of that administration to advise us. Professionals were unhappy with the payee tax. Therefore, we recommenced negotiations with the IMF and increased the payee tax exemption threshold from 100,000 to 150,000 rupees per month. We were also able to get the first bracket of personal income tax, which is subject to a 6% tax rate, revised from 500,000 to 1 million rupees. Accordingly, a person earning 150,000 rupees monthly is completely exempt from tax. Similarly, a person earning 200,000 rupees is exempt from tax by 71%, a person earning 250,000 rupees by 61%, a person earning 300,000 rupees by 47%, and a person earning 350,000 rupees is exempt from tax by 25.5%. We have succeeded in revising the payee tax with less relief for those earning more and more relief for those earning less. During the third IMF review, we reached an agreement to exempt locally produced fresh milk and yogurt from value-added tax. We also agreed to reduce the tariff on service exports from 30 to 15%, which is the international standard. We have agreed to increase withholding tax from 5 to 10%. However, this will only be imposed on those receiving a monthly interest of at least 150,000 rupees from their deposits. We will establish a new unit in the Inland Revenue Department through which any citizen receiving less than 150,000 rupees in interest payments per month can obtain an exemption upon providing necessary information. The vehicle import market must be reopened methodically. Therefore, we have decided to allow vehicle imports in 3 stages. Passenger buses and special purpose vehicle imports were allowed from the 14th of December, and the import of personal vehicles will be allowed from February 1st next year. The moratorium on the execution of Parate law was set to expire on the 15th of December. However, we learned that the total outstanding loans subject to this law as at the 30th of September amounted to 1.4 trillion rupees. The number of debtors were 752,896, of which 99% owed less than 25 million rupees individually. Therefore, we decided to extend the moratorium until the 31st of March next year. In line with this, borrowers with loans of a principal less than 25 million rupees will be given until the 15th of December 2025 to come up with a restructuring plan. Similarly, loans of principals between 25 and 50 million rupees must be restructured by the 15th of September next year, and those with principals above 50 million by the 15th of June. We will conduct a survey and identify those who should receive Aswasma welfare payments but aren't currently receiving the benefit and enable the welfare payment from April next year. There are approximately 67,000 families eligible for Aswasma payments but did not receive them for over 1.5 years due to being unable to open bank accounts as they do not hold a national identity card. We will allow them to open accounts without IDs and ensure that they receive their welfare payments including arrears.
හැඳුනුම්පතක් නොමැතිව බැංකු ගිණුමක් විවෘත කර ගැනීම සඳහා කාලය ලබා දෙන්න අපි තීරණය කරා.
පිරිපුන් ජීවිතයකට ඔබ සමගින් පෙරට Union Assurance.
Welcome to Cinnamon Life, South Asia's biggest entertainment hub, where awe awaits.
චන්දුරුසුමේ කාගෙන් මන අපේ සිංහ TV සඳහා සුපිරි ඩීල්.
Sadaharita Plantations Limited, celebrating 22 years of your trust.
Aspirations Education, a pioneer in overseas education. Meet our experts at top destinations worldwide. Your trusted and caring partner in overseas education.
Meanwhile, during today's parliamentary session, Foreign Affairs Minister Vijitha Herath stated that the NPP has always been in favour of exporting surplus energy generated in Sri Lanka, and therefore the excess power generated domestically with more investments coming in will be sold to nations in the BIMSTEC region. He went on to claim that no agreement betraying the interests of Sri Lanka was signed with India. Meanwhile, Trade Minister Wasantha Samarasinghe announced that the first batch of imported rice from the State Trading Corporation will arrive tomorrow. During today's parliamentary session, Mohammad Nizam Karyapar, a nationalist MP from the Samaga Jana Sandhana, was sworn in.
During my absence from yesterday's parliamentary session, a minister made a serious allegation against me. If there are any complaints regarding my law exams, I call for an investigation. If there are witnesses, this is your government. Invite them to court to provide statements. This defamation is not just an attack on Nama Rajpaksha, but also on the law college, the legal sector and the judicial system of this country.
I was the one who raised this matter. I have the relevant evidence. The entire country knows that in 2010, when Namal Rajapaksa attended law college for his final exam, the dean welcomed him and arranged a separate room to sit for the exam.
I challenge you to prove that I wrote the exam in a separate room. If you can, I will resign as an MP. If not, you must resign from your ministerial position. These allegations are not against me alone. I did not set the exam paper and my father did not mark it. Therefore, I request a thorough investigation by the law college and the findings should be shared with the nation.
In response to an issue raised by Minister Dr. Nalinda Jayatissa, I have decided to submit all my educational documents to Parliament. You are welcome to seek further clarification as necessary.
Under the IMF program, is there any plan to privatize any of our farms?
The
previous government was in the process of selling NLDB farms and Milko factories to a joint venture involving India's Amul and a local agent. That process has now been halted. We aim to develop other farms to profitability with government intervention and discussions on involving the private sector. However, no decision has been made to sell these assets to foreign companies.
Regarding locomotives imported since 2015, information we have suggests that the procurement process completed accordingly. However, we have information that the procurement process may have involved misconduct. We will investigate these claims further. The National Railway Service is currently in dire state. We need at least 70 to 75 locomotives, but only 45 are available. For over 2 decades, no substantial funding has been allocated to this sector, leading to corruption and fraud. Additionally, there is a severe shortage of technicians and engineers in the railway department. Without recruitment, the service will continue to deteriorate.
We have opened 43 tenders through the STC to import rice. A tender for 21,100 metric tons of rice will close tomorrow. Under the first tender, 5,200 metric tons were imported and this stock will arrive tomorrow.
If you are taking 65 rupees on imported rice, which is 40% of the selling price, and have set a control price of 220 rupees, how is this fair when even local rice mill owners are not selling at that price?
This tax has been in place since 2023. Removing it requires a formal process. If we are removing the tax now, we will not be able to continue importing rice at this scale. We are working to protect both farmers and consumers at the moment. Discussions have progressed to the point where some loans provided to us have been converted into grants. These parties recognize the President's genuine commitment to implementing the people's agenda, which is why such investments are coming into the country.
As previously stated, we aim to generate surplus power for the country and export it among BIMSTEC nations, which will benefit us. Aside from this, there are no agreements with India as you claim.
Fast track your career from O levels with eSoft.
ඩයිබටසෝල් සීනිවලින් පරිස්සම්වන ඔබට අමතක නොවන පෝෂණය.
ප්‍රයිම් ගෲප් ලංකාවේ ප්‍රථම වතාවට හඳුන්වා දෙන ලෑන්ඩ් ලීසින් ලේසියෙන් මීටමක්.
Single 1111 up to 60% off from the 11th November to the 17th of November.
Kalani wire කිසිගින්නක් නෑ.
කිසිගින්නක් නෑ. Kalani Fire Shield Wire.
Apico Mattress. Samay sapata nidiyan Apico Springs for mattress Madili Rasakin.
SJB Member of Parliament Dr. Harsha De Silva has been appointed as the chair of the Committee on Public Finance. The nomination of Dr. Harsha De Silva as the chair by the Committee of Selection to serve on the Committee on Public Finance was made in terms of the provisions of the Standing Order number 121 of Parliament and the motion agreed to by Parliament on the 6th of December. The list of members of Parliament was subsequently announced to the House by the Speaker today. Accordingly, other members of Parliament appointed to serve on the Committee on Public Finance are Harshana Surya Peruma, Ravi Karunanayaka, Harshana Rajakaruna, Namal Palihena, Vijayasiri Basnayaka, Thilina Samarakon and Lakmali Hemchandra. Now, China says it intends to resume maritime research in the Indian Ocean as the temporary ban imposed by Sri Lanka in the wake of Indian protests come to an end in January next year. This was conveyed to President Anura Dissanayake by visiting Vice Chairperson of the National Committee of the Chinese People's Political Consultative Conference, Chin Byong, today. The meeting takes place just as the Sri Lankan President returns from India after assuring that security interests of the Indian Ocean region will not be compromised.
Vice Chairperson of the National Committee of the Chinese People's Political Consultative Conference, Kyung Bo-yong, met President Anura Dissanayake at Parliamentary Complex today. The President's office said that President Dissanayake highlighted the importance of completing unfinished sections of the Central Expressway under Chinese management and expressed hope to expedite commencement of supply hubs and institutional projects centered around the Colombo Port City and Hambantota district. The Chinese Vice Chairperson, meanwhile, stated that China plans to restart maritime research activities in Sri Lankan waters which were temporarily halted while initiating relevant projects. Further, she mentioned that Chinese companies intend to establish themselves in the Hambantota investment zone, aiming to provide Sri Lanka with better global access. She also revealed that China looks forward to welcoming President Anura Dissanayake during his future visit to China. Vice Chairperson Kyung Bo-yong also paid a courtesy call on Prime Minister Dr. Harini Amarasuriya. The Prime Minister's office said discussions focused on strengthening cooperation in disease control, sustainable developments, improving trade and cooperation in multilateral fora.
Meanwhile, General Secretary of the JVP, Tilvin Silva, says the bond maintained between the JVP and the Communist Party of China over decades will provide beneficial treatment to the development of Sri Lanka. He went on to say that the JVP-led NPP government will maintain good relations with all nations. The JVP General Secretary made these remarks following a discussion with a delegation of the Communist Party's Central Committee today.
A delegation of the International Department of the Central Committee of the Communist Party of China met with the General Secretary of the JVP, Tilvin Silva, at the JVP headquarters today.
The
delegation assured China's support for upcoming projects to develop Sri Lanka. We also expressed willingness to obtain their technological assistance to bolster our agricultural and industrial sectors as we move forward in our journey of economic development. The delegation expressed commitment to maintaining close bilateral ties between the two nations and affirmed China's assistance towards the development of Sri Lanka.
ඇත්තටම ජාතික ජනබලවේගයේ සහ කොමියුනිස්ට් පක්ෂය මේ දෙක අතර දැන් තියෙන කොහොමද මේ මිත්‍රත්වය ඇත්තටම
අපිට කලින් ඉඳලම
We always maintained a close relationship with them as a political party. This relationship further strengthened once we assumed presidency. We believe that this bond will be an advantage to Sri Lanka's development process.
අපේ රටේදී උනට යොදා ගන්න පුළුවන් කියලා.
මේ ජනාධිපතිවරයා ඉන්දියාවේ ගිය එක සම්බන්ධව මෙතුමන්ලගේ ප්‍රසාදයක් තියෙනවද මොකක් හරි එහෙම
නෑ ඒ ගැන කතා බහක් නැති.
No, they did not discuss President's visit to India. We will maintain diplomatic ties with every nation, let that be India, China, Russia or America. We will visit other countries too and hold discussions with them.
සාකච්ඡා කරන්න. නිසා ඒගොල්ලන් ගැටලුවක් මොකක්වත් නැහැ.
Meanwhile, the China Communist Party delegation participated in a program to distribute dry rations to low-income families in Kaduela and to the people affected by the recent inclement weather.
We know the people of China and Sri Lanka, we have had a strong and friendly exchange history for 1,000 years. So the Chinese government has provided 10 million yuan in emergency aid to help those affected by the floods and assist in getting the country back on its feet. The Communist Party of China, CPC, has maintained good exchanges with Sri Lanka's political parties. So the CPC has actively mobilized funds and sent a working group, my delegation, here for the public welfare activities. Our public welfare activities, we firmly believe that with the leadership of the Sri Lanka government, the hard-working and kind party Sri Lanka people will overcome all the difficult exchanges and difficulties. And we hope you and we trust you will realize the vision of a thriving nation, a beautiful life, as President Dissanayake has outlined. We hope the friendship between China and Sri Lanka will forever.
US Ambassador to Sri Lanka, Julie Chung, stated that agricultural trade between the two countries have more than doubled during the past decade and reiterated US commitment to continue the trend. The US Ambassador made the remark following a discussion with Minister of Agriculture, Livestock, Land and Irrigation, K.D. Lalkantha, this afternoon. During the discussion, Minister Lalkantha pledged the NPP government's commitment to uplifting the livelihoods of the farming community in Sri Lanka. US Ambassador to Sri Lanka Julie Chung met Minister of Agriculture, Livestock, Land and Irrigation KD Lalkantha at his ministry this afternoon.
First calls that the president had was Samantha Power, USAID. They talked a lot about these issues, and Samantha said that your manifesto and USAID programs are very closely aligned in many ways.
In terms of the agriculture sector, our priority is to uplift the livelihoods of the farmer community. We also plan to initiate projects where government officials can be in direct touch with the farmers. Similarly, we expect to implement a program to enhance the lives of farmers with foreign resources. We believe the United States will support us in future development projects. Farmers are still considered an underprivileged community in the country.
Posting on the social media platform X, US Ambassador Julie Chung assured to maintain trade relations between the two nations and stated that Sri Lanka-US agricultural trade has more than doubled during the past 10 years. Ambassador Chung added that discussions also focused on the ongoing collaboration in modernizing agriculture, enhancing food security and improving livelihoods of Sri Lankans. Welcome back. Now, Sri Lanka's air quality has taken a hit, with the air quality index of several key cities in the island reaching slightly unhealthy levels, prompting respiratory difficulties. The Central Environment Authority warns that the unhealthy air quality levels will prevail for the next few days. Meanwhile, in India, the air quality in the capital New Delhi worsened significantly, placing it in the severe plus category according to the Central Pollution Control Board of India, making the worst air pollution levels in nearly a month.
In the aftermath of the recent uptick in inclement weather, the air quality in several areas of the country reached unhealthy levels, prompting respiratory difficulties. Speaking to media spokesperson of the Central Environment Authority, Dr. Ajith Gunawardena, said that the unhealthy air quality levels will persist in the upcoming days.
We observed an increase in Sri Lanka's air quality index during the past 3 days. Due to winds from other regions towards Sri Lanka, a considerable amount of air pollutants have blown over to Sri Lanka. As a result, a slight unfavorable air quality index was noted yesterday. According to reports, this situation remained the same this morning. We anticipate the situation will prevail in the upcoming days. This condition may be unhealthy for certain groups, especially those experiencing respiratory difficulties.
Meanwhile,
the level of pollution in the Indian capital New Delhi has once again soared to hazardous levels, with a top expert warning that India's toxic air will have a bigger impact on public health than the COVID-19 pandemic. Today, the air quality was 35 times over the safe limit set by the World Health Organization, leaving residents complaining of breathing problems as well as itching in their eyes and throat. Experts warn there is much more to be done, as the Delhi air pollution leave a bigger impact on public health in Delhi and neighbouring cities and countries.
High Commissioner of Malaysia to Sri Lanka, Badli Hashim bin Adam, met with Prime Minister Dr. Harini Amarasuriya at the Prime Minister's office to discuss various avenues for enhancing economic, cultural and tourism ties between the two nations. The Prime Minister's office stated that during the discussion, the High Commissioner reaffirmed Malaysia's commitment to the long-standing bilateral relationship between the two countries. The High Commissioner and Prime Minister Dr. Amarasuriya also engaged in extensive deliberations on investment opportunities, collaboration in telecommunications and automobile assembly, promoting Sri Lankan tourism in Malaysia. Meanwhile, Vice President of the All China Women's Federation, Zhang Dongmei, also called on Prime Minister Dr. Harini Amarasuriya to discuss mutual efforts in women empowerment and development. The Chinese delegation, led by Zhang, held discussions on shared challenges and opportunities in women's health, education and economic participation. The Supreme Court announced that the verdict on the fundamental rights petitions filed seeking an order to reconduct the 2024 Grade 5 scholarship examination will be delivered on the 31st of December. This was announced by the Supreme Court after concluding the hearing related to petitions which were filed by a group of students who sat for the examination and their parents. The petitions were heard before a judge bench comprising Justices Yasantha Kodagoda, Kumudini Vikramasinghe and Arjuna Obesekara over a period of 3 days. Accordingly, the presenting of oral submissions of all the attorneys for the petitioning and respondent parties were concluded this evening. Therefore, it was ordered that if there are any written submissions, they be submitted before 9 a.m. tomorrow. Toyota Lanka has imported its first batch of vehicles into the country following the government's decision to gradually ease vehicle import restrictions in phases. The company has imported vehicles specifically for the tourism industry. Previously, the government imposed restrictions on vehicle imports due to a decline in the country's foreign exchange reserves caused by the economic crisis. Government decided to relax these import restrictions, allowing vehicles to be imported in multiple phases. In line with this decision, the first batch of vehicles permitted for import were those intended for the tourism industry. Trading at the Colombo Stock Exchange followed similar trends from yesterday's session, with the market experiencing volatility and decline in the morning due to selling, but the market picked up by midday. With increased participation from high net worth investors, the ASPI closed the day in positive territory at 14,614, gaining 98 points. During today's trading session, most investor attention was focused on banking sector stocks. Multiple off-board transactions were recorded during the session. Turnover stood at 6 billion rupees, marking an increase of 29.5% from the monthly average. Moreover, the banking sector led turnover by 20%, followed by the capital goods and materials sectors, jointly contributing 35% of the turnover overall. There was a net foreign inflow of 100.7 million rupees. And with that, let's take a look at the rupee exchange rate for the day. And with that, we wrap up tonight's edition of First at 9. Thank you for joining and have a good night.